Hey friends, what's up? My name is Julie. Welcome back to my farm. I am all bundled up this morning because we just had our first frost of the season. It's the first week of November, and I think it was pretty much expected to hit about this time of year, but it's always an adjustment. So 2 nights ago, we just barely touched 32 degrees overnight, but this morning when I got up at 6 a.m., the temperature read at 29 degrees Fahrenheit. So we definitely froze last night. Any of our remaining volunteer squash plants are looking really sad and done for the season. And all the animals seem to want to eat a whole lot more, especially the ruminants, the sheep and the goats. They really want to eat a lot of hay right now. They're really filling their bellies up in the evenings, trying to stay warm. Hey, Maple. Hi, Mapes. Are you smiling? Hey, pretty girl. What are you barking at? Me? Right now I am headed up to check the charge on our goat fence. The solar charger that we're using for the goats right now is getting old, and I think it needs its batteries replaced. Hopefully just the batteries, not the Energizer. It's been in the sun for a little while this morning, so I'm gonna see if it's doing any better, because this morning it was not really working and I had baby goats challenging my fence. Hi, Destiny. Let's see. Okay, so at least we have a charge on it now. That's much better. There we go, we're hitting 4. Okay. Anything reading over 3,000 kilovolts should be enough to keep animals in. So while I'd like to see the charge a little bit higher than that, that's definitely gonna do the job. So that makes me feel better because I've got to go on a little road trip today. I've got to go pick up feed. And I thought I'd take you guys along with me and talk about some of the choices that you have as far as feeding your animals. Now, I am definitely no feed expert. So today I'm really just going to talk to you about my experience and why we've made some of the choices that we've made here on this farm. And just like what we feed ourselves and the diets that we choose, this topic can be a little bit polarizing, I found, because people become very opinionated about what they feel is the right thing. And I want to be clear that I am definitely not judging anybody else's choices. Mine have certainly changed over the years because situations change. Not everybody has the same access, the same resources, or the same needs as me. But it is something that you really need to think about if you're going to raise animals. So I'm hoping by going through some of the things that we think about here on this farm will help you guys out when you need to make those choices for your farm. Maple, come! For the purposes of this video, I'm just gonna refer to things in basic terms. So, for your normal mass-produced, big feed company, corn, soy-based feed products, I'm gonna refer to those as conventional feeds. And those are generally gonna be the cheapest. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got your organic, non-GMO, sometimes made with alternative grain feeds. And those are gonna be the most expensive. And then in between, you've got your non-GMO feeds, and then you've got your sort of specialty niche feeds. So those are generally non-GMO and then are very specific about what grains are used in them, such as the soy-free blends that we've used on this farm. You can find corn-free, wheat-free. And those 4 categories of feeds are generally what are available to the average livestock producer. So the feed mill that I'm going to today is called Mule City Specialty Feeds. It's in Benson, North Carolina, and it's about an hour and 15-minute drive for me. So I'm gonna get on the road. We have one truck on the farm that does all the work. So it's my market vehicle. So I've got the market box in the back, and it does all our feed and hay runs. When we're scheduling this sort of thing, we really have to think about our time and use of the truck. I'm probably gonna have to stop and get gas and maybe some lunch. So this is probably going to be a 3-hour plus trip. And I never head out on the road without multiple beverages because I don't like to get thirsty. And it's hard to find anything without a ton of sugar in it on the road. I'm picky about my water. I really like my own well water better than anything that I can buy in a plastic bottle. And I have a little lime seltzer water that I take with me as well. I already finished my coffee, or I'd have that too. Now, when I started this farm back in 2015, I really wanted to buy the best feed possible. So I had looked into it. I had talked to a lot of people, mainly my mentors at the farm that I had been interning at for the past year before I bought this place. And if I didn't have to worry about my budget, I definitely would have bought from Reedy Fork. They are an organic grain farm near the Raleigh, North Carolina area, and they grow and mill a whole bunch of really high quality organic feeds. I think it's awesome that everything is grown right there. You know it's organic, you know it's fresh. And those that I know that have tried them have been really happy with the results of how their animals grow on that feed. But it is very expensive. I just looked, and for a 50-pound bag of one of the feeds that I would be interested in, like for my laying hens or for my pigs, we're talking about $38 a bag. I feel like the prices that we've set for our products that allow us to get a little bit of a profit margin from raising them is already really high for most people and prices most people out of the market for us. And if I switch to that feed, I would have to raise my prices considerably, and I just wouldn't feel good about that. So I had to look at some of the next best options for us. So since I couldn't afford organic for my animals, we did want to try and purchase non-GMO, which is a little bit more expensive, but not such a huge difference that we couldn't afford it. And we did that for a little while, and then I learned more about the addition of soy and how the protein concentration of most feeds relies heavily on soybeans. And I looked at some studies that showed that soy has some compounds that mimic estrogen, can be disruptive to the endocrine systems of animals, and could affect their fertility and reproductive success. I also was starting to encounter some customers that had soy allergies or sensitivities. So I looked around, and that's about the time that I discovered Mule City Specialty Feeds and what they were able to do. The guy that runs the place, Paul Dunn, will tell you that he is not a nutritionist, but he is very, very knowledgeable about animal nutrition. And he is very capable of formulating basically any kind of feed you want. So we decided we wanted to go with a non-GMO soy-free blend for all of our animals. And that's what we've fed for the last 5 years. And when we started feeding it, it was definitely a little bit more expensive, but not something that we couldn't reasonably work into our prices. And it kind of set us apart in the market a little bit. And at the time, and for many years after, I thought, of course, it's got to be non-GMO. That seemed really important to me. Not that I think there's something inherently evil about genetically modified organisms or that I have fears around them themselves. I really haven't seen a lot of good evidence for health concerns related just to the practice of modifying organisms. But I do know that most of them are modified so that they're Roundup ready, which means that they can be sprayed with heavy amounts of glyphosate. And I didn't want that in my feed. But then recently I found out that most crops now are sprayed with it. So whether it's labeled non-GMO or not, for example, most wheat, which is not a modified crop, is sprayed with glyphosate. And just because something's labeled non-GMO doesn't mean that it's not sprayed with a whole lot of other pesticides. So in light of that new information, I've really been reconsidering our feeding program. And then the pandemic hit, and we all felt the supply chain issues, and since then, we've all experienced the rising inflation. And for us as farmers, that means that almost all of our costs have at least doubled. The major ones being our processing costs for our meat and the price of our feed. So literally every time over the last 2 to 3 years that I have gone to pick up feed, it has been significantly more with each and every bill. Now, we've been able to offset the cost of feed somewhat by partnering with a local brewery and getting their spent brewer's grain. Not only has this been a wonderful nutritional supplement for our animals, it has really helped our budget. But lately, we've hardly been getting any of this, and that's because the brewery is not selling as much beer. High-end craft beers are a luxury item, and with everybody feeling the pinch of inflation, they're just not buying as much. With the rising cost of everything, we were still able to keep the business going, thanks to our loyal customers. But we were watching our profit margins just dwindle down to nothing, and we're putting so much effort and labor into this place, and anything that was coming back in was immediately getting reinvested back into the farm. And honestly, Daryl and I were facing some serious burnout this last summer. I think it was a combination of the heat and just being dragged down by being sweaty and tired all the time, but also just not seeing any kind of progress happen around here, both financially and an investment in the business. It's heartbreaking after a while, and it really drags you down. It makes getting out of bed and doing it again every day harder and harder, and really strip the joy out of what we were doing, which is why I'm here in the first place. I really love farming and raising these animals. So we really had to sit down and think about what we could do to improve our situation. And one of the things that we've decided is that we're going to downsize quite a bit on the number of animals that we have, just to make things more manageable. We're going to focus on rejuvenating some of the land that we have so it's more productive. And we're going to switch to conventional feed. And I don't feel great about it. But for our situation right now, I've decided it is the right thing for us to do. So the organic food, the food that I would want to feed, is about $38 per 50-pound bag. Compare that to what we are feeding now, the non-GMO soy-free, is about $25 a bag, which seems like a great savings, but that's still 50 cents a pound. And we're going through literally hundreds of pounds a day here, so it adds up very quickly. And it's just not sustainable anymore. Now, I could go to a bagged local feed store and get a non-GMO blend from one of the big feed companies. And I looked into that. I thought that would probably save us quite a bit of money. And honestly, it won't. Those feeds are still $22 to $24 a bag. So really very little savings, other than I don't have to drive so far to get them. So I would save a little bit on gas money. But then I looked to see what the conventional feeds were going for, and I was shocked at how much more affordable they were. I'm looking at around $15 to $16 a bag for the conventional feeds. So that's $10 a bag. That is such significant savings that I really felt in the end, after comparing all the options, that there was really no other choice for our situation right now. We are going to slowly phase out of our non-GMO soy-free feeding program. We are still going to finish our turkeys this year on a non-GMO soy-free diet, because that's what we promised our customers in the very beginning when we started raising them. And that was our plan. That's how we've raised them the last couple years. So we're going to maintain that product this year in the way that we've always done it. But going forward, honestly, we're probably not going to raise a whole lot of turkeys. I'm planning on just having a small flock of heritage birds that I breed a few every year for us and probably for some family. We have already begun switching over our pigs. We're slowly mixing the new feed with their old feed so their guts can adjust to it properly. But they actually seem to really be enjoying the new feed. And I feel like I'm already seeing a greater rate of gain on my piglets. And that's another thing about the non-GMO soy-free feeds, is that they rely heavily on grains like flaxseed and linseed, which aren't always that digestible. So even though the protein percentage on paper may be 17-18%, I'm not really sure how much my animals are absorbing that and utilizing that in growing. So I do know that there have been times when in a pinch I've got to feed some conventional feed or just some off-the-shelf non-GMO feed to my animals. And honestly, they always seem to enjoy it more. They eat it with such zeal and gusto. And honestly, they tend to grow faster on it. And that's why conventional feeds are the convention. They are the ones that are most heavily used in the raising of livestock. These companies have put millions and millions of dollars into researching what helps these animals grow fast and efficiently. And I have to admit that it does work. And Daryl pointed out to me today that some of the pigs are just sifting through and picking out the conventional feed and leaving behind the old soy-free. So they definitely prefer the new feed better. We also have a whole lot of pork already in the freezer that is soy-free. So that gives our customers some time to get used to the idea and decide if they still want to remain our customers. We're going to be very transparent and open. We're telling customers individually as they buy our products, as we try to switch over these feeds, that this is what we're doing. Because I definitely don't want somebody with an allergy or sensitivity or who's trying to be really mindful about their diet to ingest something that they didn't think that they were ingesting when they buy our product. And I'll tell you who is the most happy about this change are my ducks and geese. They are so unbelievably thrilled whenever they get a conventional corn soy mixed feed. They eat it so fast, they fight over it. They're so happy. Anytime I have them on the soy-free stuff, it sits around sometimes for days. They will kind of sift through it and pick out the little pieces of the non-GMO corn. But you can tell there's a huge difference in their preference for these feeds. You guys want a scoop? Is that what you're waiting for? We got them a nice layer pellet right here. Let's give it to them. Let's see how they feel about it. So happy. Like it's candy. Now I am considering this more of a short-term stopgap for us to help us catch up. Like I said, we're trying to downsize quite a bit, and that's really hard for me. I hate selling animals. So it's going to be a slow process. I'm going to have to decide little by little what I can let go of. Part of that is the emotional attachment that I have to them. Part of it is that I worry about what happens to them once they leave me. But also, I have spent years and years trying to build up really high quality herds of good hardy animals, and to let some of those go and really to signify letting go of this growing into a bigger business right now has been a little bit hard for me to accept. But I am trying to focus on the bright side. I'm looking forward to having more time to spend like learning to make cheese and doing charcuterie and just cooking high quality meals for us, maybe having a garden again. We've talked about maybe getting a bottle calf next year and using our surplus of goat milk for that purpose instead of selling it. And then we could have some homegrown beef on the farm. But really focusing on healing our land, healing us, getting our diets more under control, and just kind of focusing inward for a little bit and not worrying so much about the business and our customers and selling, and just worrying about running the best farm that I can, growing good food for ourselves, cooking good food for ourselves, and having time to spend with my husband and enjoy some time together while we're still kind of young. We're both in our 40s now, so we just want to have a little more joy in our life and not be so throttled by the farm and everything that it requires. And a big part of that are the expenses associated with caring for so many animals. So hopefully this change will help. Like I said, I hope it's just temporary. I'm hoping that we get back to a good place, maybe in the next year or so, where we can start buying that organic feed and then just producing probably a fraction of the products that we do now and just offering a little bit to the public as a high quality niche product. That's where we're at, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts on the topic. Share your experiences with the different types of feeds and what you think is worth the money in raising your own animals. As always, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.